Hi. I haven't even looked at comments on the video I just did, but I thought about it. And I thought, well, which team should I talk about next? And the answer is Minnesota. Because the Wild were quite the story. And it was between Columbus or Minnesota next. And I thought, nah, we'll go with Minnesota. Because of all of the American locations to have a hockey team, Minnesota's the best one. And they didn't have a hockey team for a while because some greedy people decided Dallas would be a better decision. The team in Dallas won a Stanley Cup. This team is waiting. So how close are they? Well, I took a lot of heat a few days ago a couple weeks ago actually, for saying that I felt that Minnesota was probably on the bubble. Maybe they could make the playoffs, maybe not. The Central's tough. The Central and the Metro Division are both very tough to call. In terms of figuring out who's going to finish where, it is a very tough call. Sorry. I'm just trying to... One sec. Alright. There. Trying to find a more sturdy way of doing this. A little more steady thing. I like Minnesota's roster. And I think for Wild fans and myself, we got off on the wrong foot for the last season. So let's go ahead and try to gloss that over. Now, Niederreiter, Granlund, both still restricted free agents. This is a problem. Because if this somehow dragged into the season, then all bets are off. Let's go with what I like. Players that I like from watching Minnesota last year. Zucker, definitely. It looks like it's the wide end, but it's not. Okay, Zucker's a definite check mark. Granlund's a warrior. Stahl bounced back and proved me wrong. I like Koivu. Now, when I say I like a player, it doesn't necessarily mean whether I think they're a good or a bad player. It just means that personally I kind of cheer for them when they're on the ice. Marcus Foligno is a big ad, potentially. Eriksson Ek impressed me in the starts that he had. When you look at this forward group, the first thing that jumps out to me anyways is they can roll 4 lines. And all 4 lines have somebody on that line that can hurt you. Now, toughness may be an issue. You have Stewart, who is capable of pushing back a bit. But physical forwards, there's a lack of a Clutterbuck in this lineup. There is. Now, where would you put Clutterbuck? Well, you'd put him where Stewart is. Not a huge fan of Stewart, but it is what it is. And still, Charlie Coyle. Yeah, I got to have a check mark next to Charlie Coyle because Coyle was damn fantastic. And he may be the butt of jokes for Sharks fans who, oh, look, we got Brent Burns for Charlie Coyle. And I said during the season a few times, Coyle's a damn good player. So it's not like they gave him away for nothing. The blue line is intact. I don't know how. They lost Scandella in a trade. They lost Tuck. And Tuck is big. Because when you look at their depth up front, Cal O'Reilly has experience. Landon Ferraro has experience. They'll be able to step in and they'll be able to clear waivers if they have to go back to the American League. But, man, Alex Tuck could have stepped into third line here this year and could have been really good. The potential was there. They lost that potential to keep this blue line intact. So you got Suter, Spurgeon, Dumba, Brodin. That's your top 4. Quincy's number 5, Riley's number 6, and Murphy's trying to resurrect his career as a number 7. So bona fide top 4, absolutely. Just the amount of talent. Suter can score, Spurgeon can stick handle, Dumba can score, and Brodin, I think, is going to bounce back this year. He had a down year, but I think he's going to bounce back. So there you go. It's a fantastic blue line. There's a lot for me to like up front. I think Stahl overachieved. I think Stahl's going to fall back points-wise. I think Parise is gradually declining. But I think there's enough other pieces to keep things interesting. And I'll be interested to see, like, how will a Kyle Rowell play? What about Dante Saliaturo, who they got in a trade? How's he going to play? How's he going to factor into things? Is he going to factor in at all? Does he get a call-up? Is he worth a call-up? Does he get anything? No? Well, forget it then. And can Ryan Murphy resurrect a pretty much dead career coming out of Carolina and being bought out by Calgary? And there's Grant and Soucy down here as well. Now in net, Devan Dubnyk makes the world go round. For Minnesota, they have a balanced attack minus a real superstar. And it's not... I should really, really define when I say superstar. I am talking franchise. For instance, the Vancouver Canucks, what are they lacking in their retool, their rebuild right now? There is no future franchise player. Horvat's an excellent player. He's not a franchise player. I don't see a franchise player in Minnesota. So it has to be offense by committee. It has to be solid defense, and Dubnyk has to stay at that level. For the Minnesota to have a success, Dubnyk needs a .926 or higher in save percentage. They might be able to get by on a .920. Anything less than that, they're missing the playoffs. Average is .915. Last time I checked, the average save percentage is .915. They need a little bit above average goaltending to make the playoffs. Now, do I think Dubnyk will hit .926? Absolutely. Devan Dubnyk was a cast-off. He wasn't wanted by Edmonton. He was cast off by Montreal. He was let go by Nashville. He was done. And it's like when he got to Minnesota, he said, I'm not done. Not at all. And as a backup, they let Darcy Kemper go, and now they've got Stalock and Svedberg as backups. Now, the site that I'm using here, I went to the wrong end again. The site that I'm using has Stalock as the backup. Beat you, backup. I personally think Svedberg's going to get it. And I'll say why. As a Boston Bruins fan, having watched Nicholas Svedberg as a goaltender, I was very surprised when Boston didn't try to keep him as a backup. He's a really good backup. And I think he's going to surprise some people. I know Stalock was brought in to be the backup, but I think Svedberg could very well win that job. And Svedberg is capable of a .920 or higher save percentage. Absolutely. Is Stalock? Potentially. And I'm talking a full season backup in Minnesota. I like Svedberg. Is it bias? Maybe. Could be. Absolutely could be. But we'll see. Because Svedberg's come back over. There are enough pieces here for me to say to Minnesota fans, let's make up. Let's make up. I see the Wild as the second best team in their division. This season, I honestly think, as long as the Niederreiter, Granlund issues don't become a thing, if these guys don't come into camp, if there's some kind of an extended, prolonged fight over money between the team and both of these guys, if it's Granlund alone, it's going to hurt them. If it's Niederreiter alone, I think they can overcome it. But Granlund is huge. Granlund's huge at both ends of the ice. I honestly think they can overcome Niederreiter being out, not Granlund. So they got to get the Granlund thing done. I get comments in my videos about when are these RFAs going to get done, and various RFAs are mentioned. I don't understand what the holdup is. I don't know if they're waiting until after arbitration. If they're waiting for arbitration to set market value, because that's dangerous. Arbitration deals can be just insane. But this all looks good right now. I looked at the team and you know, I wanted to say, well, Minnesota overachieved and they're going to fall, and you've got a division with Nashville, and you got a division with Chicago, and you got St. Louis. Winnipeg's up and coming. So they're going to fall, right? I don't think so. I don't think so. And this is a tough as hell division. It's very hard to call this division. In terms of divisions in the NHL, the Metro and the Central are the ones that are going to keep prognosticators like myself up at night. And right from the start of the season, we're going to look at our predictions and say, boy, were we off. Minnesota had a great run. Minnesota had a really poor last quarter of the season. In the playoffs, they did their best to overcome that. They finished with 106 points. I knew I was forgetting somebody. That's hilarious. I remembered Colorado, but Colorado is not in the mix. The fact that I'm taking them second in a division with these other teams shows how strong I'm agreeing that they are. I'm agreeing with Minnesota Wild fans who told me when I did the who's a contender, who's a maybe, that these guys, at least in the regular season, are second. Now, playoff time, here's the thing. Playoffs, a lot of the time, come down to your centers. Your top three centers. Your top three centers would decide how far you go in the playoffs. When you look at Mikko Koivu, Eric Staal, and Charlie Coyle, do you say, that's a team that's going to go to the third round? That's a team that could win a Stanley Cup? Or do you look at that and say, they're good centers. Unfortunately, if they met up with, say, an Anaheim in the playoffs, Kessler can neutralize whoever their top center is. And it is a narrative, and I've said before, each season's a new season. Clean slate, fresh start, all that stuff. But as much as it's a clean slate, what did I do? Oh, it's just my phone. Who cares? It's just my phone. Well, it's a clean slate. You have to look at matchups. And while it's a clean slate, Kessler's still going to be your matchup from Anaheim. Or Edmonton. Would those three centers match up against Edmonton? Because for Minnesota fans this year, if they have a good season, let's say they finish second. Let's just, and I'm going to go against my own betting here. Let's just say that Minnesota finishes, so you have Chicago finishes first somehow by hook and by crook. I am not going with my actual predictions. Let's just say Chicago finishes first, Minnie finishes second, St. Louis slides into third, and Dallas finishes fourth. As much as Minnesota fans would be proud of that second place finish, seeing Chicago up there would drive them nuts for one. But they'd say, well, Chicago's going to lose in the first round. Seeing St. Louis as their matchup might make some people a little bit nervous based on this past season. But anything less than coming out of the division is a failure. Bruce Boudreau is now staring down the gullet of a bad playoff record with really good teams. And it's for that reason that I have a hard time envisioning this team as Stanley Cup contender material. It has nothing to do with individual players. It's just Dubnyk, through no fault of his own, never been out of the second round. Not very many players in this group have. Yes, Eric Staal with Carolina had a good record in the playoffs when they got there. But that was a while ago. This is not the same Eric Staal. Parise was part of very solid New Jersey Devil teams that played really well in the playoffs. He's not the same Zach Parise. Notice I said Parise and Parise, so both pronunciations are honored. Zucker. What if Zucker falls back? And again, they can roll four lines. I'm really impressed. And yet, you kind of get the feeling that maybe up front, they may want another depth guy. But Maybe Ferraro and Cal O'Reilly are enough to cushion the blow if something happens. So there you go. Second in the division. So for Minnesota fans who may have been upset with me for saying they're not contenders, guess what? I'm putting you guys in the playoffs. I got to get that off the board. That is not how I've got it mapped in. That's not how I have it mapped in. So Nashville fans, Dallas, St. Louis, Chicago, Winnipeg, Colorado, you guys can all just settle down and just don't worry about it. I was just using that as an example. So let me know what you guys think. How contender-ish is this roster? Does losing Scandella, does losing rookie Alex Tuch, does that hurt things? Or is this an organization that by picking up a Quincy, by picking up Foligno, by picking up Ennis, have they mitigated some of that? So let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. This is fun. I really enjoy doing this. This is some of the most fun I can have with my board, is figuring out who's going to play where, who I like with the check marks, who I think are the key top 4 guys, and where I think the goaltending goes. So yes, one last point. I do think Dubnyk gets a 926 or higher, and I do think he ends up back in the Vezina conversation again. It's the postseason that's going to tell a lot of the tale this year. For Minnesota, it's all about the Stanley Cup and getting closer to it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.